All right. Here we go.
Hey, I'm super excited to talk to you about something. You know, I was actually convicted, Dr. Fred, because we've been having a lot of guests on our show, and we've been talking about a lot of therapeutics. We've been talking about the vaccine. And honestly, as I was thinking about today's show, I think that it's time that we can set our listeners free. There's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of concern. People are even questioning their own God-given immune system. So I think it's about time we set the truth straight. We tell them about the power that they have within and what we can do to set it free. So hi, welcome to Resurrecting Our Freedom. This is my good friend,
Dr. Fred DiDomenico. That was my cue.
And I'm Dr. Douglas Luciano. Welcome again. So Dr. Fred, I kind of love it that today we have to hang out and get to talk.
Yep, we get to talk about what we love the most. And you're going to love it too. How cool is that? Because when we love it, you're going to love it.
So we're going to talk about what sets people free. And we're going to talk about the fact that people have a God-given immune system that's a heck of a lot more powerful than any medication. So what really got me going is we had a doctor on our show, which I love. He actually understands the real mechanism behind this virus. And he was talking about all the amazing and the wonderful therapeutics that they have out there. As I was thinking about that, I thought to myself,
they're all outside-in approaches.
We already have an immune system. It's an immune system that can fight off anything, because you know what? There's no virus alive or around that's more powerful than our immune system.
Nope.
Because as BJ said, if there were, nobody would be around to talk about it.
Yeah, BJ is the guy that developed chiropractic
Yes.
and really brought chiropractic out. So that's BJ Palmer. His father discovered chiropractic. But that was it. If the germ theory was true, meaning like if germs from the outside infect us, if that was true, there wouldn't be any humans left walking the earth because we'd all be dead. But the reality is it's all an inside out. And with all the stuff going on in the world, all the outside in stresses, what are we really looking for? 52% of Americans don't want to get the vaccination. People are realizing, hey, we got a 99.74 survival rate, and that's with all the overdiagnosis. Right. So people are saying, you know what? They're scratching their head like this, and they're going, something doesn't make sense. There's something else going on here. And what's going on? It's all these outside in profiting corporations that are trying to shift our mindset so they can make money. Really, I mean, that's really it, right? So they can control the population. And this is an opinion. I mean, it is an opinion. However, but if you're paying attention at all, there's boatloads of research and facts and stuff that can support this. If you're watching this, how did you get here today? Right. Why are you still alive? What's your family tree look like? I don't know how many millions of years or humans been around, but obviously something is working where the population of the world is increasing every year. So there must be something inside of us that made through every plague, every sickness, every human beings, every disease known to man has had a healing in someone. Right. Every disease known to man has had a spontaneous healing. There is something inside us that's even bigger than our immune system. It's our spirit, it's our nerve energy, it's what's running inside our body that can heal your body of any disease, A, when you believe it, B, when you take care of yourself in a way that maximizes your potential.
That's so awesome.
See, we can just end it right there.
We just have to wind it up. Mic drop, baby. Yeah. But let's just talk about this. So this virus, for instance, it doesn't go after young people. We know that the fatality rate amongst young people. So it does go after people who are sick and compromised. What we call that comorbidities, which means they have high blood pressure, they're obese, they might be on multiple medications like ACE inhibitors for blood pressure issues.
Diabetes.
And what we know is this, the virus goes after sick people. Sick people get sick, well people don't. So if the difference between those who have a high fatality rate and those that don't is one's own innate immune system and our health, how come we're not having a national, or for that matter, a worldwide conversation about how to increase one's wellness?
Well, and I'm gonna reframe your words a little bit because some people may misunderstand it. The virus doesn't go after anyone.
Thank you. That's great.
Right? So it's not like the virus is a predator and go, nah, you're too young. I don't want to infect you. Ah, you look pretty healthy. Oh, look at that overweight person right there. Oh yeah, they got heart problems. I can tell. Actually, what they're doing is go, wow, look at that. If they did go after people, they go, wow, look at that person with bad posture. There's a weak person right there, and that's what we're going to get into.
Well, there may be some truth to that, actually, but
Yeah, so the reality is, what's herd immunity? Hey, we've all been exposed, but the people that are weak are the ones that get sick.
right.
And that's it. There's no difference in a lion looking at a herd of wildebeest and taking the one that gets isolated,
Right.
or the weak one, or the one that can't keep up. It's the same thing.
Right. Well, it's I'm sorry, go ahead, Frank. Louis Pasteur's famous quote that microbes or germs or viruses are merely opportunistic vectors of disease. They themselves are not the cause of the disease. Right?
Right.
So
Big
they
one.
they don't go after people. Viruses are in the environment, but those who are susceptible are those who get sick. So again, we're talking about therapeutics. So we've been spending a lot of these podcasts on what to do after you get sick, and it seemed to me it's not quite congruent with our message, which is why
How do we live?
Right. How come we don't talk about a lifestyle which inhibits us from having a susceptibility to a virus?
Exactly. And so I think the foundational thing, I know, the foundational thing is we're chiropractors, but the reason we're bringing this message is the spine and nervous system is the foundation of health and life in the body. So there is tons of research in this book. Go to Elite, E-L-I-T-E, coachingllc.com, because this has all the research, medical research, right? But what you're not hearing on CNN about how posture causes stress to the spinal cord. We have stress to the spinal cord. The nervous system and the immune system are considered, they're so closely interrelated, they're considered one system. You can't have a nervous system under stress and a strong immune system. It does not work. You can have a strong immune system if you have a strong nervous system.
Psychoneuroimmunology. We can just say this. Everybody agrees that if a person is under emotional stress, and I ask my patients this, if you're under emotional stress, will you be more or will you be less susceptible to disease? And everybody goes, no, if I have emotional stress, I'm going to be more susceptible to illness, right?
Right.
So if we understand stress is a compromise of the nerve system, what happens if you block the communications of that nerve system? It is also a form of stress, hence the term psychoneuroimmunology.
There you go.
That was
a big word. I was wondering where you were going there. I'm like, I don't know, stress. I'm blanking right now.
So in your book, you actually have a lot of research about psychoneuroimmunology.
Yes.
And it's not just like a made-up term. It is actually a medical...
It's a science.
It's a science. And so what goes on with your nerve system affects your immune system. They are not segregated. They're actually one and the same. There's not any cell in your body which is not intimately connected to your nerve system. So if you have a compromise in that neurointegrity, you're going to have a compromise in that part of your body.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing that why we are so passionate about chiropractic. It's not because we went to school, we have to pay off all our student loans. That happened a long time ago, okay? That happened a long time ago, but it's through all the, we became chiropractors. When did you graduate? I graduated 87.
84.
84!
I'm an old
Dang,
guy.
he was much smarter, so he went through high school and college faster than I did. You must have been an accelerated student.
I did.
I think I was on the 5-year plan in college. Bartending did not affect that, I'm just saying. Bartending all the way through school did not affect the fact that it took me a little bit longer. So, but the bottom line is, we've seen the medical failures. Who goes to chiropractors? Now, it's like a household word. But when we started in the 80s, it wasn't a household word.
No.
And so we got the medical failures. We got the people that absolutely were looking for something because medicine said we can't help you.
Right.
But what would they come in with? Diseases. They would come in with diseases because that's what we taught our patients. Now, obviously, some people came, doc, my back hurts, crack my back. They would come in not really knowing, but then we would teach them how the spine and nervous system is foundation health and life in the body. We go through a consultation. We find out they have allergies, find out they have asthma. I found out cancer. I would have people with AIDS. They would come in and we would fix their spine and their their body would start making T cells again. All the way. And when that becomes to us, when we know the nervous system can't carry energy to the organs, it's really a life or death situation.
Right.
So now there are people where it can be sudden death. I remember, and you know this, you've had experiences like this, where I remember this woman came in and she was a great patient, and then all of a sudden she disappeared for 2 weeks. I'm like, wow, she makes every appointment, she's on time. I call her, nothing. And then she comes back 2 weeks later and she said, my husband died of a heart attack. And that hit me, because here was this woman, she lost her husband, a family lost their father, yet I didn't approach her about her family coming in at that time. And that was the last time I did it, because we can't even count the hundreds and hundreds of patients that were on blood pressure medication that got off their medication when we fixed their spine. The people that had tachycardia. Tachycardia is when your heart beats real fast for no reason. That's almost like a muscle spasm. So ventricular fibrillation, when your heart seizes up, that's a heart attack. That's like a muscle cramp in your leg. Why would that muscle cramp? A lot of times because you have a subluxation, your low back's misaligned, and then it causes a muscle to cramp. There's no difference if you have a neck problem or upper back problem and your heart seizes.
Right.
This guy's heart seized. He died of a heart attack. He had a muscle spasm of his heart because we didn't do our job.
Right.
And that was the last time. You know, we see so many healing miracles, but you know, I know that I've watched people that would have died of a disease that lived, and then I've also watched people that didn't get chiropractic and they died.
Right. It's what we call the untold story. One of the things we do in our practice now is we actually measure things. We measure physiology now. And just in 1 month, I had 2 people had kidney dysfunction. There's something called a GFR, glomerular filtration rate, which was really low. So basically means the kidney's clogged up, and then blood urea nitrogen goes elevated, very toxic. They actually need to go on to dialysis if it wasn't fixed. I started adjusting them. I told this lady, let's see if we can allow the body to heal the way God intended it to be. And sure enough, I had them do a retest. 2 patients, and their GFR, the filtration went way up, and the blood urea nitrogen went way down. And what do? We allowed the body to start to function. And again, I ask everybody, do you all agree that stress causes dysfunction? Could stress cause a kidney problem over long term? And everybody would say yes. Can stress cause a heart attack? The answer is
Yes.
Can stress cause a stroke?
Yes.
High blood pressure?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so if we all agree that stress can cause these dysfunctions, then how about doing what you can do to see a neurological corrective-based chiropractor to reduce the stress that's manifested in the body?
Okay, I have a metaphor that will make you want to go see a chiropractor. Probably turn this podcast off and call a great chiropractor. So here's a metaphor
Well, let's
right
not finish the rest of the podcast, though.
here. Okay, fine.
But say
No, I got to tell it right now.
Yeah, tell it.
So imagine let's use a metaphor of a toilet. So you go to the bathroom in the toilet, but the problem is your spine's out of, so if the toilet is like your body and your spine's out of line, because what happens, it's like that the kidney's not working. If the kidneys don't flush, you have all the toxins build up. Well, your liver's like that, all your organs or your digestive tract is like that, right? So if your body and all your cells are like that, if they can't rid themselves of normal metabolic toxins and you're eating and exposed to the environment, it's like keep going to the bathroom in the same toilet without ever flushing it. Now imagine if your toilets didn't flush or only flush a little bit. That's what it's like when your nerve energy is not working.
Right.
When your spine's out of alignment, man, and then all of a sudden the bathroom stinks, overflows down the hall. Next thing you know what I mean? Anybody ever have a cesspool or, where your back's up in your backyard and you're a little kid and you're running out there playing and you got poop up to halfway up your shins? That may be a personal story. Back on the East Coast. But that's what a body's like that's out of alignment,
So
right? And that's
become-
why you get sick. You're not flushing your toilet.
Neurological constipation is what I guess.
Oh, my. Yep, that's
Yep.
exactly right.
So I was reading this paper. The name of the article is How to Age Rapidly or Not. It's a medical doctor. Her name is Dr. Pauline Harding. And she says, and she calls it this Neanderthal posture in which the chin forward posture and pelvis is flexed. You illustrated that if you want to illustrate it again before the podcast. There you go. She said that causes a release of the stress hormones, namely cortisol, and compromises this other hormone called DHEA, which is the anti-aging hormone. She was saying this article blew my mind. She's a medical doctor, probably never been to a chiropractor, and she's saying just the posture alone affects the physiology, which causes aging of the body because it releases cortisol as if we're in a fight or flight response.
Yep.
She gets it.
And there was another medical doctor, I actually have it in this book. Now, I believe it was a female Japanese doctor. Her name was Kato, K-A-T-O. I forget that offhand, but it's in here. And that Neanderthal posture, meaning an accentuated thoracic curve with a forward head posture and a flattened low back, is a posture that is associated with a shortened lifespan.
Yes.
So that means if you have that posture, you will not live as long. And what they show was your spinal cord goes down the spinal canal, but the spinal cord takes the path of least resistance. So if you watch a race car and they're on a track, they always take the inside turn. Even if it's S turns, they're trying to drive a line that's as straight as possible because that's where they get the greatest speed. The spinal cord will do the same thing when your spine is out of alignment. It always hugs the inside. So when you have a hunched back, the spinal cord is literally laying right on the back of the vertebrae because there's a canal. It's actually in contact with the back of the vertebrae, and the front of the spinal cord are your motor tracks. So your body literally starts weakening. Now the back track, the posterior tracks, right, in the back of the spinal cord end up becoming stretched. The front end up becoming smashed. The ones that are getting stretched, that's sensory. So in other words, you can't feel anything, but your body is weak. So that means you may not have pain. You may or may not have pain. You don't feel anything. You think you're fine. You see your posture distorting, yet your body is breaking down. And what that does is it shuts down the speed of the energy that can flow through your cord. It's like stretching a rubber band. Stretch a rubber band, what happens to diameter, right? It gets thinner, there's more tension and stress. That stress, it's called sympathetic stress, which means that's your fight or flight. Your body is in constant fight or flight, and that's why cortisol. Cortisol is stress. You get systemic inflammation, and that is a precursor for really all disease.
And by the way, cortisol is it's inversely related. So the higher the cortisol, the less capable your immune system is capable of functioning. We can actually measure something called the secretory immunoglobulin A. The higher the cortisol levels from stress, from subluxation, from misalignment, poor posture, the more compromised one's immune system is.
Dang.
It's all in the book, baby.
ELITE, coachingllc.com. This book will change your life back to health.
Yeah, we're giving that to all of our new patients.
He's telling me, stop showing this. I'll write it down there.
No, it'll be in the
I love it.
I'm just kidding.
I really think, honestly, I'm not saying this because, you're Dr. Fred and I love you, but that book needs to be in everybody's hand.
I love you too.
Thank you.
This is our moment.
Let's get back to this. Just to piggyback on that, there's also a study which was done by the American Academy of Geriatrics. They literally talk about people who have the greatest amount of kyphosis, which is exactly what you're referring to, has up to a 15-year loss of life just from the hyperkyphosis, particularly what you're talking about. Relative to the neck, real quick, when you have a loss of curvature, you're actually causing friction along the anterior part of the spinal cord against the vertebrae, which actually causes micro tears and literally bleeding in the spinal cord, which creates inflammation.
Ouch.
You have inflammation in the spinal cord that literally is Houston control. That means the entire body is now compromised and stressed.
Yep.
It's so simple, but yet the world doesn't get it.
Well, and when the spinal cord is in contact, because your spine is bent and the spinal cord is touching the vertebrae, even though you can't feel it, what happens every time you move, it creates a friction rub. Now, that's like a callus on your hand. Hey, if you lift weights, you get big calluses, right? So you develop these calluses, so to speak. It's called sclerosis. It's a hardening of the tissue. And then what happens is that neurological impulse, it's like hitting a dam in the river. It's like a Hoover Dam. It doesn't jump and continue down there. So when you look at your neck, what part of your body is below there?
Everything.
Go ahead, say it. Everything, your whole body. So when you have those friction rubs and calluses in your neck, that's what happens with MS patients. And so people that have misalignments in their spine, that have these areas of friction rub, will start to develop not only autoimmune diseases, they'll develop autoimmune. There's high correlation between that and autoimmune, which autoimmune leads to cancer, and autoimmune can be life-threatening. And it'll lead to diseases like MS. It'll lead to diseases like ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, which means you start to lose function of your musculature, and that is a debilitating disease. So these diseases can be mimicked, or you get the same symptoms just because your spine's out of alignment and the spinal cord is rubbing up against your vertebrae and you can't even feel it.
And also, let me add this, it's not just a disease of the body, but actually we know, studies show that when there's a loss of curvature, it affects, there's a study that was done in 2016, medical journal, it affects the hemodynamics, it literally compromises the vertebral artery.
That's blood flow.
Blood flow, thank you. It restricts the blood, oxygen-rich blood, that it needs to go to your brain. Reverse curvature, loss of normal lordotic angulation, compromises the blood flow to the brain. So this isn't just a body malfunction when your nerve system is under stress. This is a brain problem. And we can even get into all the 40-to-1 ratios that mechanoreceptors stimulate the brain. The bottom line is a subluxated person not only has a diseased body, but has a diseased brain as well.
Well, there's two things, and I'm sorry, I'm not like the research quote guy, so these things that I've read the studies over the years, I've seen the research, but I'm not one to say, well, in 1992 and this thing, you know what I mean? So I apologize for not having this. However, two things, it's also been shown a spine and neck curve out of alignment, and you have the vertebral arteries, those are the arteries that supply 50% of the blood flow to the brain. Because it's out of alignment and constricts the blood flow to your brain, that's one of the major causes of depression, because you get less blood flow to the brain. Then there was another study that showed, when he says mechanoreceptors, the joints in your body, especially in your spine, they have receptors in there for motion. So motion is life. So when our spine moves and you have flexibility, it actually stimulates our brain, stimulates your cerebellum, right? And your cerebellum connects to your autonomic nervous system. That's the nervous system that sends energy to all the organs. Like, you don't think about breathing, you don't think about digesting, you don't think about your liver working, your heart beating. So it actually comes, that autonomic nervous system actually is nourished through motion. So what happens is, if it's not working right, they did a study also on the brain, and that feeds your brain. When you lose motion in your spine, it begins to degenerate your brain. The average person, their brain starts to atrophy at age 25. You're starting to see atrophy of the brain. Why? Because they've been around long enough, their spine's out of alignment. So they did this study where they monitored brainwave activity, and they took this person, all they did was wiggle their foot. So this person had a spine out of alignment, they wiggle their foot, man, massive firing in the brain. And so what happened is, any motion, because their spine wasn't working right, overstimulated the brain, because they're already under a great deal of stress. So if you add stress, then you overwhelm yourself with stress if your spine is out of alignment. And then they adjusted that person, they took their foot, moved it again. There was hardly any brain activity, because you take the stress off the body, and all of a sudden your ability to handle stress. So we're running around with all these stressful things. We're sitting here on our phones. You didn't take care of your spine, and you wonder, why do I feel overwhelmed? Because your body is already overstimulated, not just from exterior stuff, but because of the alignment of your spine, and you can't handle any additional stress.
There's actually a word for that. That's called allostatic load, and that's the stress upon the nerve system. So when a person is subluxated, misaligned, forward head posture, they're increasing allostatic load, which is a relative degree of additional stressors the body can handle or take.
So are you feeling a little overwhelmed?
So let me sum this up. There's three questions I ask my patients, because one of the things we tell them, is it more important how you feel or how you function? Because you can be sick and feel no symptoms, cancer, stroke, heart disease. For 50% of people with heart disease, very first symptom is a fatal heart attack, right? So you can feel no symptoms and be very sick. So we can't use how you feel as a measurement for how healthy you are.
Well, not only that, healing feels sick.
Right.
Healing feels sick. You can feel sick while you're healing, right?
Right.
That's food poisoning. How do you feel when you eat food poisoning? You're coming out of both ends there.
Right.
That's not pleasant. But what if you didn't? If you didn't do that, you would die, right?
Or
What's a
we could use
fever?
the idea of a fever, right? That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was going to say. So it's not how you feel, it's how you
heal,
function.
right?
So then my next question I ask people is, okay, well, what in your body controls all function? And they always tell me the
Nervous system.
nerve system. Okay, that's very simple. So it's not how you feel, it's how you function, number one. Number two, what creates all function in the body? It's your nerve system. Number three is, if you have stress or compromise in the nerve system, can you have full function in your body? And the answer is
No.
no. It's as simple as that. It really is.
So glad I passed that.
You did.
I was under stress. Oh my God, what's the third question going to be?
You passed it with flying
Thank you.
colors. And what's awesome about him is I actually learned a lot of my communications from you. So if that made sense to you, it's because of this man's brain right here, because he's a master communicator.
And they're like, well, then why did you ask such easy questions?
Because it
I
really
didn't claim to be smart.
Here's the problem. If we can bring this back to, and I'm passionate about this. People, majority of those news shows that people watch on TV, they're promoted by and supported by and influenced by drug companies, like the big pharma. And we know that big pharma has one job to do it, and that is to sell more drugs. I'll never forget, my dad's, one of his good friends was the vice president, I won't say the name of the company, but it was a major pharmaceutical company. And I said, how can you go to bed at night knowing that this particular drug you know is hurting people, and you actually got a lawsuit and you paid out millions of dollars for it? Like, how do you know that and still go to bed at night? And he said, well, let me ask you this question. Does Apple have any obligation to make the world a healthier place? Does every time you get on that iPhone of yours, you're buying from iPhone, they don't have any ideas that maybe they can make the world healthier? Then why do you think that's not our job? My job is, in his mission statement, is to make profits for the shareholder. I go, oh, it makes sense now. So here's my concern. All of that to say is there are all these influences that people are watching in social media, which is lined up in the major news networks, and they're all influencing our fear. And that fear is to let us feel that we have an inferior immune system, that we are sick by nature, that we cannot...
We got to fear the evil predator.
That it's going after us.
Yeah, that's going after us.
And that's why, thank you for correcting me on that. That was awesome. Yeah, viruses aren't going after people. Viruses are just there, right? They're opportunistic vectors of disease. So there is such a fear-demic out there, Fred, that really, like we said at the top of the podcast, I hope this sets people free. I hope you feel a little bit more empowered. I hope you feel that you do have an immune system. I hope you feel that you are much more powerful than you think. Yes, you do need to take care of your health. There are things you can do, like get chiropractic care, eat right, sleep right, all those amazing things. But we know this, a healthy body does not get sick. Sick people get sick. So you know what? You have control of your health. You have control of what goes on with your immune system. Those big pharma people out there are trying to convince you otherwise.
Now let's clear something up, because there are some drugs, obviously, that are life-saving, but why do people need those drugs? Because they didn't take care of their body. They didn't lead a healthy life. And so now they're on medication to try and stay alive. So there are drugs, man, if you're in a life-threatening situation,
that's a whole different situation.
That's a whole different situation. What we're talking about is pharmacology that fools people into thinking that you need to be healthy. But the reality is that if we weren't raised, if you didn't buy into that, then pharmacology would be restricted to a handful of those life-saving drugs for people that didn't take care of their health and they're nearing the end of their life.
Just think about this. You see people driving in their car with face mask on. California's schools are still closed, even though kids are not getting...
The means of transmission.
It is so, again, I like to call it the fear-demic. They've done such a good job at influencing human behavior to be living in a state of fear. and that we need a pharmaceutical outside-in approach. And we have a message, Dr. Fred, that message is life-giving, it's freeing, and it's empowering, because we have a message that lets people know that they actually have control of their health. And they don't have to fear something from the outside in that can get them from the inside out.
Health is a choice.
It really is.
And that's it.
I got two things that I think would be interesting for you to tell.
This is our handsome producer right here, Dalton.
Hello. One, you briefly mentioned people being on phones, and I know that people are the kyphotic people that is in your book. It comes from being on technology and doing that kind of stuff, right? Did you touch on that?
No, so this right here is a scourge of the world. I was, as we alluded to, I hate to admit how old I am. I'm 6 years old, but I was practicing since 1984, and I never actually, in my early days of practice, I never saw a reverse curve. I'm seeing reverse curves, not just straight military necks, but literally a curve that's supposed to be 43 degrees. I am seeing reverse curves going the other way. Why? Because I see kids like this, Dr. Fred, all of the time. If I see you in my office like this, I take the phone away from you. Like, that's terrible.
So everybody who's using their technology should be seeing a chiropractor just based on the principle that they're kyphotic and everything that you said at the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah, this is literally, it's creating stress and it's killing you. This is killing you.
So are you going to stop using your phone?
No.
No, you're not. So you're going to adapt the lifestyle. Are you going to do that every time? No. Do I do that every time? No. But you know what I do? Every day, every night before I go to bed, I get an extension. So I work on my laptop because now I'm not adjusting people, I'm coaching people, right? So now I have a job that's on my laptop and on the phone. So, but the bottom line is, if I spend a long time creating something on the laptop, every day I end an extension for at least 20 minutes. So every day, because I'm going to be on my phone and because I do that, I understand the difference. Every night we go into extension and reshape our spine back to normal, and it releases the traumas of the day. So you create a lifestyle. Because not everything's going to be perfect. We sit in cars, we sit at desks, we have technology. You know, the world today is a flexion, distorted lifestyle. Everything we do is forward. And so if you don't have the habits to get back into extension, you're going to die. Basically is what it is. It's like you're going to get sick.
And can I just say this? Because you coach some of the best chiropractors on the planet.
I'd like to think so.
Okay.
With a spinal corrective technique.
What I like to do is I like to say, if people out there who need a chiropractor, they ought to get a hold of us. And then those people that are in your program, the circle, I think we can become a network, because it's about time that we reach out to people and we get more people under chiropractic care.
So when you get this book, Back to Health, you go to Elite Coaching LLC. He'll have it on there. I don't need to say it again. There's the most advanced technique in spinal correction. It's called chiropractic biophysics. The abbreviation is CBP. And you can go to cbppatient.com and you plug in your zip code, and the people at the top of the list in the area, those are the most certified, and it goes down. So that's a technique. You can get a certification. It's the most advanced research, evidence-based system that's ever been created. Medical doctors are referring to it constantly. It's absolutely life-changing. My own personal story, being an adrenaline junkie, had multiple injuries. When I was in my early 30s, I had 2 degenerative discs, one at L5 and one at C5. I had diagnosable disc bulges. I had sciatic pain down my left leg every day for 15 years. I couldn't even leave town. The first thing I had to do when I landed in town was go right to a chiropractor, because if I didn't get adjusted every other day, I would have burning sciatic pain. Every time I sneezed, my arms would burn, and here I was, a chiropractor, until I found this technique. And then I rehydrated my disc, meaning I lost half the disc height at 33. I'm 60, just turned 60. I have full disc height. I have normal curves in my spine. I train like a beast, right? We train hard. I can bang down a mogo run and have more confidence in my spine now than I had when I was 33, almost 30 years later. It is the most spinal correction. Healthy spine and nervous system is the most powerful anti-aging system on the planet.
So basically, if you're watching this video
Which you are.
You're on your phone. Yeah. And you need to go see.
Raise that phone up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, well,
Cool. Any final words?
Yeah. Just the second thing that I was thinking about was, everybody who watches this video needs to see a chiropractor, but you touched on it on how they can get in contact with
cbppatient.com. Plug in your zip code.
Yeah.
Any final words, brother?
No, it's time that we restore faith in the human condition, and we don't have to live in fear. And that through chiropractic, it's awesome. Yes, I do have one more thing to say. Not only people who get into chiropractic care obviously get spinal correction if they're into a neuro-based corrective care chiropractor, but also it's a whole lifestyle. Like when people join my office, it's not just the adjustment, it's a lifestyle. We do orientations, we talk about supplements, we talk about exercise, we talk about sleep, we talk about the latest things like infrared saunas. So it's an immersion into wellness. So the chiropractic is the core, the nerve system is the core, but if you come into our offices, you actually are open up a door to
So what's your office? Give me your phone number and let them know where you are.
Well, we're in Irvine, California, 949-559.
Slow down there, brother. Oh, you'll put it on there.
6030.
Say that again.
949-559-6030. Our handsome young man here will put it up. But really, it's just an immersion into wellness, and people need to know the truth. And right now, they're getting immersed into fear, and it's about time they get immersed into love and into freedom. And you and I know this. You and I know that fear drives disease.
Exactly.
So we're going to set people free, baby.
And it's about time we took an inside-out approach. Inside out spiritually, inside out in healthcare, because they're both the same.
Imagine how much the world would have lived differently this past year if we would have had a more above, down, inside out. Because like we talked about just last time, those 74,000 people that just died of despair because they took their lives because this thing drove suicidality and alcoholism and domestic abuse. We can't take those back. If they would have lived a life that's above, down, inside out, free of fear, we could have saved those lives. So you know what? Spread this podcast to those you know. Everybody's got to hear this podcast. They're in a state of despair and depression, and you know what? We're going to be uplifting, and we're going to give a positive message of hope.
Well, and not only that, we say, well, if people would have known this, we wouldn't have gone through what we experienced. But the reality is we needed to go through this so you would pay attention so you can create a new and better life.
There you go.
Peace.
Love
you
peace,
guys.
baby.